would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the filthy capitalist option. As Sori says, $125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You don't have to be a part of the alliance. You don't have to be part of the group.
Wait a minute.
And the biggest thing is you don't have to wait. You hop, skip, and jump right in front of everybody. $125 gets you there. You do that 3 times, and then get mashed down to the $75 rate for perpetuity.
Yes!
Also, there is a band review option. So if you've got a band and you're trying to get your band some exposure, hit me up at vinsori@gmail.com, and I'll show you the details about how to pull that off.
You can also jump on Patreon, and there is a option on the tiers to be able to get your band reviewed. Yep. Obviously, we can't lie to you, so we can't guarantee a positive review. Get what you get.
It's just rubbish.
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 That's British for garbage.
My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in at Patreon. You get to join an alliance. The alliance joins their points together, and that helps determine what songs that we do.
The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go in the village, facebook.com/Vin and Sori. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Sori and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Buy our merch.
Buy our merch. What? I don't know. Your computer's working really slow, babe.
Is that it? Is that what that is?
I'm in that. Look, I have it, and it's right here.
Okay.
So where is it?
I don't know. Go talk to the people. I'll figure it out. It's my computer. That's the problem. Talk to the people.
On my computer, I see it. How are you guys? Okay, so up next is Aeternam, Bringer of Rain. As with Blood-Red Hourglass, also this band has not been able to win a poll. Symphonic folk death metal from Canada, but it has an oriental touch to their sound.
All right, I'm just gonna go into the email. See, I got that right there. I got all that there. It's not there.
So you need the link? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, just give me the link. I mean, it would be great if I could find it on Trello, but
I'm literally clicking on the thing in Trello and it's right
just
here.
send the link. That'd be good.
Okay. Can I send it to you through text? Is that fine?
Yeah, it doesn't matter how you send it, as long as it gets sent, right? All right, guys. So once we get that up, we'll be ready to rock and roll. This is the Love for the Dark Arts stream. It looks like it's like dark arts, like from all over the world, basically. We had one from Tahiti, one from America. The first one was. Why do I keep thinking it was a French band? It wasn't a French band. What was the first band? Was
So there's the 2 links. One from
French. The first band wasn't French. They were something, but they weren't French. But anyway, it's the United Nations, dear listener, of black metal. I think it's pretty cool, actually. I'm not gonna lie to you. We would have.
They called it Venetic black metal.
Yeah, okay. So that first one, those guys were from Italy. Okay. All right. So read the thing again for this one, and then we'll be ready to go because I got the link.
Aeternam. Is that how you would say it? Aeternam.
It looks like Aeternam to me, but Aeternam,
Aeternam, Bringer of Rain. As with Blood-Red Hourglass, which is coming up soon. Also, this band has not been able to win a poll. So, symphonic folk death metal from Canada, but it has an oriental touch to their sound.
There you are, dear listener. Okay. All right, let's see it. Let's see if there's an oriental touch. Where did he say they were from again? But it has an oriental. What was it?
Canada.
Canada. All right. Well, we'll be the judge of that.
We are on the border.
Let's go. Doop, doop. Making of the side, cold is the old suffering.
thoughts beyond these walls. As I stepped into the arena, I only sought for violence and chaos. From now on, my fate is to regain my freedom, to tear the Republic into pieces. As I roll.
Spartacus.
Wow, that was I was like, wait, the first line made me say, wait, are we talking about? And then as it kept going, I picked up on it pretty quickly what this song was about.
That's very funny. It's very, very funny.
It reminded me of that TV series, remember that we watched, Spartacus?
Yeah.
I loved that one. I loved watching that with you. That was such a great series to watch with you. Anyway, this is when he talks about the bringer of rain, I'm not clear on that reference.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a god or if the word Spartacus means bringer of rain. I don't know. Or if rain, you're talking about like a rain of blood.
Rain.
You know, like a rain of blood. You know,
right,
like...
yeah. I wasn't sure if it was that or if it was... Because obviously the house of Batiatus has sustained... Batiatus, yes, has sustained the anger of their servants, leaving their crates in the mayhem as the rebels escape. Like, they put a lot of the story in here. So is that story, like... I mean, how much of that is...
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of Hollywood in it, but he did. He led a slave revolt.
Yeah.
He was in the house of Batiatus, and he did. They caused a lot of problems for Rome.
Yeah.
And you know, you had the servile wars, and you know, you had a lot of these uprisings and things of that nature where, you know, slaves took up weapons and they're like, "Fuck that! We're gonna kill you. We're gonna fight back. We're gonna kill you," because you know, at the time with the pater familia doctrine, like the guy had the man had literal control of life and death, whether it was a newborn. The father could decide to leave the kid to exposure, which basically would you know, to get rid of the kid, or you know, so slaves, I mean, they had to be completely compliant, or else they'd beat the hell out of you, assault you, all types of things like that. There's a guy, I forgot the guy's name, but he's a very interesting fellow because he basically says Christianity is the reason for the entire Western world. He says the difference between East and West can be explained only by Christianity, and etc., etc. He's not a Christian, but one of the things that was fascinating in his discussion, because he was debating some atheist guy. The guy himself is not a Christian, but he's saying, look, man, this is just facts. But when he started talking about slavery in the ancient world, And he was like really one of the first people that said, look, man, this idea of like complete human equality, that all human beings are equal by nature, is not the majority report in the world. Like that concept. Yeah. And then he talked about the crucifixion and how he said it was the most significant moment in Western history because you had the king savior character dying the death of a slave. And so it elevates the slave to this status that's not only equal to everybody else, but almost sort of like the side that God is on, where you have, you know,
that's
the
an interesting way of
concept
looking at
God
it.
being on the side of the underdog and the crucifixion in the story. That's so it was just a very fascinating discussion. But the thing that really was crazy to me was he said, listen, slaves were considered complete property of the man. And he goes, listen, we're talking about, it got very graphic, but he was talking about orifices that, you know, in the literature, people were using their slaves
that
like...
word means.
It was just basically any opening in your body, basically, is an orifice. So, like, he was saying that completely was viewed as belonging to the master, and using your slaves like a toilet, that was just regular. And so, like, that is the context that Spartacus and those folks were dealing with. I mean, it was an insane kind of way to live, and if you resisted that at all, they'd kill you. And that's the context to Paul saying slaves be obedient to your masters. The reason for that is obvious. Jesus had a non-violence ethic. And so if you were to actively resist your master, you have a choice now of either dying or killing your master. So the whole be obedient to your master, you know, people, it's not like Paul is saying vote to maintain the institution of slavery. Yeah. Like a lot of people, like, they bring their Western ideology into like the time and period of you know, the ancient world. Like, if Paul were to say, yeah, don't take no shit from your masters, fight for your right to party, now the only other option you have is to join some slave revolt and start killing people in bunches. So it's like, what do you want Paul to say? What Paul did say, though, was manumit yourself. 1 Corinthians 7, he said, listen, don't be a slave to anybody, but if you can free yourself, free yourself. And then he says, you belong to God, don't be slaves of anybody. So Paul was telling them, get free if you can get free by non-violent means. So he says, if you can get it, 1 Corinthians 7, get it, and that's almost universally recognized as manumission. You could work your way out of slavery in the ancient world. Yeah. And so Paul said, yeah, if you can do that, do that. And then he commands them, don't voluntarily ever put yourself in a situation where you're a slave. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he talks about, like, well, I don't know if it was him or if that's Proverbs, but basically
Tom Holland is the guy's name.
If you're in debt to anyone or whatever, like, get out of that debt as quickly as you can. Like, don't be in that situation.
Yeah,
it can be avoided. So
Spartacus, you know, there's a lot of, like, glorification of Spartacus, but he was not the only. He was far from being the only one that. You know, and but what's fascinating is obviously at the end of the Spartacus story, all of his crew dies, they all get crucified, that type of stuff.
But I don't understand, like, okay, so if you're saying that the Bible is saying, you know, like, slaves obey your masters, like, when you're in that situation, because it's either you obey them or you're gonna die, violence is gonna happen. So if you have to take a non-violent stance, but I don't understand what you just said. I've never heard of that before, and to be honest with you, it's really troubling, using somebody as a toilet. I don't even. Anyway, you're saying that in a Christian context that the person is supposed to not try to get their freedom, they're supposed to allow something like that to happen?
What do you mean not try to get their freedom? What
no,
I'm
like,
saying, he said if you can get your freedom, get your freedom.
No. The person is not going to let you free. They want you to let them treat you like that.
Yeah, that was the status of the slave. If you don't want to get treated that way, you're going to have to kill him. Those are your options. Right? So I'm sure there's a lot of Christians that said, yeah, Paul, I hear you, but I'm going to join this slave revolt over here.
Yeah, I mean.
Right? But this is why I chuckle when I debate American Christians with all this gun shit, and they're like, God would want me to defend my family. Shut the fuck up. Don't say that. Because there have been millions of Christians that have had to follow Jesus's command for nonviolence. We're not the exception. And I'm saying this as a person who loves violence, but we're not the exception. We don't get to do that. Because our brothers and sisters have been suffering under this shit and haven't resorted to nonviolence. It's only the Americans that get to say, well, yeah, that's for y'all. We're not going to let this happen to us. All the little crazy machinations Christians go to justify, killing people. But what I'm saying is that was the command. I am certain that it was disobeyed a bunch of times, right? I'm certain it was disobeyed a bunch of times. But the point was the Christian church could not be another jihadist outfit. And the Roman situation provided a lot of temptations toward violence, whether it's the slavery aspect or the fact that, these guys you would get crucified. You'd be walking down the street, seeing your cousin on a tree, begging you to kill him. There were a lot of temptations to strap up and go on a killing spree. And no, it wasn't, what American Christians do now. They say, well, if they want to kill you because you're a Christian, then you're supposed to accept martyrdom. But if they want to rob your house, fucking blow them away. Sorry, the vast majority of the very earliest forms of Roman persecution against Christians had nothing to do with our faith. It had to do with the fact that they were racist. Okay? They were crucifying Jews long before and after the inception, the coming of Christ. Okay? So this ridiculous distinction that Christians in America make, you just make that so that you don't have to deal with the realities of what original Christians had to deal with. And that's just a fact. It's a fact. Say what you want about Constantine, but when Constantine converted, it began the erosion of slavery. It extended libertas to the religious sphere. Roman society in Western Europe was transformed by this. It's a fact. It's impossible to deny. We are the beneficiaries of the Christian religion getting preeminence on this hemisphere of the planet. And you see the difference between the Western world and the Eastern world. I'm sorry. This is not about ethnocentrism or anything like that. It's just plain old facts. Okay? Go look what happened in Libya. Guess what happened with Al-Qaeda and all those boys? Trust me, I know for a fact. As soon as Libya was, quote, liberated by Al-Qaeda with help from NATO and her allies, they immediately reopened the slave market. So there's that. So, yeah, I mean, this is a very good. This is a very good way of, getting inside like the psychology. Hear the suffering, the smell of flesh, acclaiming the bringer of rain, faith uprising, the shadows of war calling the bringer of rain. That is, I'm assuming, is when he was walking into the arena, and he's the bringer of rain because he's about to kill these people. And again, like.
Yeah, maybe they all had different names.
This happens like over and over and over again, but you had a society that was centered around men killing each other for sport.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And you in the audience were able to decide the fate of a person when they were in their most vulnerable moment of their life. And I guarantee you, if you were to ask those Romans when they were leaving the arena, are you a good person? They'd say, hell yeah, I'm a good person.
Yep.
Like, I don't know how many times I have to repeat this.
Yep.
Every society and every generation has a norm that is absolutely fucking horrible. Mm-hmm. And if you believe that you're in this society, but you don't hold to any norms that are horrible and barbaric, that's possible. But it's also possible, what's more likely is that just like those Roman people who would say, it's a blood sport, but I'm still a good person. Every generation, every society has it, and it's just fascinating because the only time we can see it is when we're looking at somebody else doing it. We're never able to self-critique. What's really interesting is one of the ways that the gladiatorial games ended was the big homie Saint Telemachus. And Telemachus, it's interesting because you can actually read, you can actually read early Christians talking about the lore of the arena. And I forgot who it was, but I was reading it in Logos. You're basically reading the diary of this early Christian, and he basically said, I've been able to stay away from the arena for like 3 months, but he basically broke because he heard the roar of the crowd, whatever, and he went back into the arena. So these were real issues in the Christian church very, very early. So think about it. If you're a Roman citizen and you went to the arena your entire life, and you've got memories with your dad and all this shit, and he's in his toga and you're getting your popcorn while this guy's getting his throat slit. I mean, so now you're a Christian. You're not gonna stop. It was a very real, it was crazy. And he basically said, I was kicking myself because how could I do this? Because my brothers and sisters get killed in here all the time. Because he was kind of like he was a Roman citizen. They didn't know he was a Christian yet. Yada yada yada. So it's just unbelievable, like, to think about, and I think about it with UFC and with the NFL. Obviously it's at a much less degree because you're not guaranteeing a death. But the entire point, when we went to see Brady play, we were not going there to see anybody get hurt. We were there to see Brady. We're there to see Brady's greatness. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a struggle for me because no matter what anybody says, when somebody gets blown up in football, that's the loudest the stadium is gonna be. That's just a fact. Same thing with so my point is like, this shit it's unbelievable. But Spartacus is a very interesting case study because here you have a guy who looks at oppression, he looks oppression in the face and says, nah, bro, nah, we're not doing this. And he responds violently, and he gets all of his crew killed. And guess what? Slavery and the gladiatorial games continued long after his death, because he died in the 70 BC. So 70 years before Christ. Then in comes Jesus with the turn the other cheek shit. And so in that context, you have the Sicarii, as XBM is talking about. The Sicarii were basically a terrorist outfit of Jews who were applying asymmetrical warfare. You had the Zealots. You had all these groups that were saying we gotta take an armed response to Roman injustice. Then you have Jesus going in the complete opposite direction. Turn the other cheek. Don't resist the evildoer. Obey your master. Blah blah blah.
Man.
Walk the extra mile.
I don't know if I would have followed him back then.
That's my entire point. Most Americans would not have followed Jesus.
That bothers me a lot.
Because the shit that he's asking you to do is too. But look, how did the gladiatorial games end in Rome? It was Telemachus, a Christian, jumping in the middle of it and getting torn apart. That really started raising awareness, like, holy shit, maybe we shouldn't do this. Because Telemachus was saying, you guys are killing these people. But the rest of the folks were saying, hey, this is a norm. This is what we do. Plus, they're gladiators. They're not really... I mean, is it really the same thing as killing a Roman citizen? Obviously not. Because they had a stratified system of justice where some human beings were open for killing and other human beings were sacred. Yeah. And Telemachus, who refused to mind his own business, jumped in the middle of that arena. And he got torn apart, and he knew he was going to get torn apart, but that was a catalyst to the end of the gladiatorial games.
Why? Wasn't he just another person dying there? Why did that bother them? Like, I understand
because it was a civilian. Because if you step on those sands, you're most likely going to die. So, I mean, think about what we just witnessed in our country. You had 19 heavily armed individuals with some body armor. Yeah. Who refused to go into a room when they heard kids were getting shot. Yeah. It is not normal for somebody to run into certain death. So when you have a civilian
that does that,
and he gets in there and he says, stop this, then obviously it's a talk of the town. And so obviously you needed Constantine and the rest of the stuff to make it illegal, but that's the point. So it's fascinating because the parallels between Jesus and and Spartacus, because Spartacus' solution is just, let's slit everybody's throat. Jesus' solution is, how about you walk an extra mile with a Roman soldier? Because it is the Roman soldier who is maintaining this entire system that allows for slavery anyway. So by the end of the 1st and 2nd century, Christianity was most famous among slaves and soldiers, interestingly enough. And it was the inception in the Christianity and its spread that eroded slavery in the Western world and got to the point where slavery was unthinkable in the Western world. It was Christians that did that. But so what's fascinating is not only Christ's principles directly ended slavery in the long term for Rome, but in the entire hemisphere.
Yep.
So it's just really fascinating, because that's what I tell Dorian all the time. Like, the Sermon on the Mount are not suggestions.
Yeah.
They're not suggestions for how to be a nice guy. It is the only way the world is going to work without us destroying ourselves. All the violent people had their shot, and all it did was create more crucified people. That's all it did. Whereas Jesus also created a bunch of crucified people, but those people went into the ground, and then the fruit of their death was what you now are as an inheritor of Western society, where you assume things like your own equality and life is sacred, and even if you're a low-wage worker, etc., you don't even have the basis for...
Yeah, I think so, Middle Earth.
You don't even have the basis for Marxism without a Christian worldview. Because Marxism says that the worker is equally as valuable as the master, and as a matter of fact, Marxism has a sort of upside down thing where the worker is actually more important, which is exactly what Jesus says, that the leader is the one who does the serving. And the people who are being served are lesser in the kingdom, and the ones doing the serving are more in the kingdom. So Marxism is really, it necessitates a Christian worldview for it to work.
Yeah.
Because these assumptions of equality, human dignity, the right for the worker to get his wages, the fact that workers are owed wages and that there's such a thing as a just wage and an unjust wage, find me that in the Roman system for all human beings. People go, well, I mean, Plato, please. Plato didn't believe in complete human equality. Find me that anywhere. This idea that everybody is equal and that the worker deserves a wage, and not only a wage, but a just one. That's the groundwork for Marxism. You don't get that without Christian assumptions. So anyway, it's just fascinating to me that, but then how did the Marxists try to enact? Because I believe that they're right, but they try to enact it with violence, which is why it always fails. Because nothing that's going to last can be implemented with violence, because what that means is you couldn't convince people's hearts, so you just had to stab them in the heart. But the next crop of people, it's not going to hold, because you're just intimidating these people into believing your view instead of changing them from the inside out. Anyway, it's a fascinating discussion. Did not the Christian women's incredible bravery and death in the Colosseum help the Christians' cause? Yeah, that was another one, particularly Perpetua.
Yeah.
Perpetua, who, by all...
Well, it was Perpetua, and it was Perpetua's friend, that the slave girl that was with her, because the slave girl that was with her she prayed that God would have her baby sooner.
Yeah.
So she could be killed at the same time as her friends. So they all went into prayer, and she birthed the baby early, and the baby was given to another family to raise the child. And then they all went out there together, and it was actually Perpetua's friend that, because when she was getting tore up by the animals, her milk was coming.
Yeah.
And that was like horrifying for people to see the milk mixing with the blood.
Yeah.
And then that was kind of like, people's like, this is a little out of hand.
Yeah. And that's how you overcome it. Mm-hmm. But what you don't do is strap up and kill everybody in the arena, which is what I would do. I just heard some shit about the cops today. And I thought to myself, if I was there... I mean, but that's weakness on my part. That's what I'm saying. That's weakness. The ability to change people's hearts on an issue makes things so much more arduous, and it takes so much longer, but it creates entire hemispheres of human beings where you can alleviate suffering by the millions if there's a generation that's willing to suffer horribly for the next one. Which is what our forefathers and our foremothers, and I mean our foremothers, because make no fucking mistake about it, if you read the literature, it is clear 10 to 1 that Christian women sacrificed way more than Christian men back then. And you just use your fucking imagination. So, hats off to the Christian women in the world. Shout out to Spartacus, because I'm much closer to Spartacus than I am to Jesus, obviously. But I believe that God is merciful, and even though those people made the wrong decision, He would forgive them. Because if I don't believe that, then He won't. Then I have no hope. So go ahead. What do you give the song?
You go first.
Good Sunday evening. I almost question myself, Sunday evening. It's not Sunday, it's Monday evening. Bringer of Rain from Controller of Minds is here. Long live Controller of Minds and long live Spartacus.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Oh,
all right.
Oh, what a sad thing. Okay. What do you give this one?
This is a 9.8 for me. I loved it. And I was not expecting I think Middle Earth said that Controller has the melodic death stuff. I was not expecting the melodic singing in the middle at all. So that's really pushed it up for me.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'm glad you said that. The whole conversation, to be honest with you, it threw me for a loop, and I was having trouble remembering the song because
I know.
Discussion is very difficult. I think this is the first time that I've ever admitted to myself I don't know if I would have followed him. If I was back then. You know what I mean? If I was like a slave?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm with this. Just let this, especially what you just said. It's very troubling.
Yeah. We're gonna kill them all.
Jeez.
Yeah, he knew to put me in this time. He knew which people. It's funny, it's funny. I was listening to this Muslim dude, and he was talking about how Allah specifically knew which people Muhammad needed around him, and so he made sure that Abu Bakr and Umar and all those people were there because they were the best generation. And God knew, you put Vin in that situation, he's going to fail. So he put me in this time period. And I still fail horribly in this time. I barely make it in this time period when there's no real need for violence anywhere. There's no need, really, for violence here. I'm talking about need. People who get violent here, violent here have to get violent overseas. So you have to seek out, you literally have to travel thousands of miles to seek out violence to do. So yeah, I can barely make it here. He knew not to put me in there. There's no way I'd never make it.
I'm gonna match you with a 9.8.
That's why I said lead us not into temptation. He knows.
9.8.
Yeah. There you are, dear listener. We're coming back with more metal goodness. Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.